Okay, so another episode of Thanos Note, and today I have first my friend, and secondly a very well-respected professional, Beata Drezek. Beata has got over 25 years' experience in business and real estate. She has worked with some of the largest organizations in the world, such as the European Investment Bank, the European Commission, and the UK's largest developer, Barratt Homes. She's also a US Family Office ambassador with experience across large companies, such as New One Capital, completing transactions over $25 million at Barratt Homes. She's also an investor and property developer with BD Homes. She was also a broadcast journalist and a published author, the Polish-English Bilingual Visual Dictionary. Beata helps project owners secure project finances directly from private debt capital with no intermediaries, daisy chains, and associated distractions. Some of her projects range from $250 million to over $5 billion with no upper caps across real estate, hospitality, infrastructure, energy, mining, agriculture, and more, including technology, of course. Now, Beata, welcome.
Thank you so much, Aladi, for this introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invite. And it's fantastic to have this opportunity to catch up with you.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I know it took a little bit of organizing, but, I'm super, super, super excited that we finally got to doing it.
It's all right. Not to worry.
That's awesome. So I'm going to jump right to it as we were talking about earlier. Your investment thesis is a lot more unique than most, given the very large transactions that you specialize in. And many of those transactions, I call it the unseen hand, because those are very, very sophisticated, complex type of deals. And we were sharing personal experiences earlier. Do you believe that most projects, most large cap projects, specifically infrastructure or otherwise, don't have a common non-financial trait? So when I say non-financial, what I mean is beyond the dollars and cents, right? Is there conviction? Cui bono, who benefits? What's the long-term sustainability? And does that take into account current and future market conditions?
I think it depends on the project and it depends on the project owners. I mean, some of the projects that we work with, we basically connect project owners for large projects directly with the private debt lender. So they are mostly looking at the projects from 250 million up to 5 billion or more. So just the numbers themselves, and it depends on the industry in which the project is. But if I look back at the last year, and the truth is that very few actually get through this rigorous due diligence of the lender, and very few meet the lender's lending criteria. I would say that looking at the projects, it really varies, because some of the projects and project owners are experienced. So that means that they've got some higher goal, and some are purely based on the business, and they're purely based on the numbers and making it work and the bottom line. And with the lender, it really does not matter that much, because, at the end of the day, they will look at the project as the private capital. They will look at the project. They will want to determine first things first, whether the project has got the collateral, or otherwise what we know as a down payment. It's on a similar basis to when you get your mortgage. And then they will look and dig deeper into, whether the project is actually going to be deliverable or not. But some of the projects, like we spoke before, the projects that, I call them kind of, the projects are not so much the passion projects, but the projects that are close to my heart. And these projects sometimes struggle, just like I gave you the example. There was this project which aims to put to the market and manufacture the cars, the vehicles for disabled persons. And like I said to you, from my personal perspective, that is just so hugely important. Because I grew up in clinics. When I was 6, I was diagnosed with scoliosis. So, you know, that my youth was just from clinic to clinic to clinic. And like I said before, you know, I still have this vivid image of this little girl running. So I was 6, maybe 7, and then she was running towards me and laughing and you know, basically a joy of life. And then I realized that, you know, that she basically didn't have any hands and she didn't have any legs. And so she was maybe 2, but still so full of life. So when I look at a project like this is so hugely important to me. That, you know, that I'm just going to push and push and push. And with the capital, they will look at numbers. That's just what it is. And the scrutiny criteria. And so, you know, at some point, you know, though I had a conversation because the project didn't have any collateral. Hopefully, they will get an investor who will be able to bring in the equity. But with the a lender, it was just like, you know, you must really love those guys because, you know, you keep pushing for them, fighting for them. It's just, I said, well, it is, because that is where there's the human face of the project, where this particular project will serve many, because I've seen those 40 years ago, you know, how a human being can struggle with everyday activities. And it's just, you know, we don't realize how blessed we are that you have 2 hands, you have 2 legs, you can go everywhere, you know, you can walk there, you can cook your meal, you can just, you know, you can do these things for yourselves. But just imagine that little girl, you know, how does she answer the phone? So, you know, that brings me to another aspect that you mentioned before we went live. Was just like, you know, with the artificial intelligence, you know, these things, the command, and you can just, you know, one of the things that I really dreamt of when I was a little girl, because I really loved science fiction. So for me, it was just like, I had this dream that one day we will be able to have a video phone. And then boom. I mean, literally, you know, when I was reading all those fantastic adventures, I thought, you know, it would be so great to have this video phone. And now we have WhatsApp and all other medias and, you know, this call itself, right? Which is great because you can connect with people in such a way. So when I think about, you know, the projects like the cars for the disabled people, fantastic. And like, you know, the artificial intelligence that is changing the way, you know, Alexa, do this, do that. And, you know, you have so much help if you're in that position where you actually need help because you cannot do things yourself. I don't know. What do you reckon?
You know, that's a fascinating analysis, because first things first, dreams do come true. So what you dreamt about on the video phone, here we are. Every phone today is a video phone, 99% of phones at least. And on the other hand, you know, when you talked about the young girl with no arms running joyfully, you know, my question, I mean, I'm going to share with you my thoughts first, but I'm going to lead back to a question, which is, you don't miss what you never had. Because if she didn't have hands, yes, she was running joyfully, perhaps that's her reality, right? She never had it. So she naturally adapted to not having it so she can live her life, even though those of us that have our hands and legs can't imagine life without them. But she's living life without them. So she never had those things, so she doesn't miss them, and she's created her life around that. The same way, you know, humans, we speak different languages. And even if we speak different language, I mean, I've lived in 8 countries, been to over 46. And one thing across from India to Lima, Uruguay, Germany, we find ways to communicate. You know, so I'm looking at that going back to our earlier conversation, the home is the basis of everything. So we look at personal experiences around how we relate to each other and how naturally humans want to help each other. That's the one thing that I believe is always missing. Even if an investor, whether it's me looking at a project to invest in or vice versa, even if the answer is a no, it's not because there's hatred. The economics just don't make sense based on the information provided at the time. People genuinely mean well, but all of our theses are different. You invest based on your experiences, your interests, your capabilities, your expertise, among other things. And you've done this long enough to understand this is my thesis. This is where I am going to specialize and focus in. Another investor who might be from, say, San Mateo, California, may just like doing early stage investments, and they cut checks less than $20 million. It's got to meet certain criteria. And they don't do anything past Series A, for example. A capital project, for example, an investor might be, I'll say, land developer. And I've done a few of those where we'll buy, 500-600 acres and we'd level it, chop it up, put wells, fence it, and we turn it on, and turn it over to the next, a development company that they might want to put buildings, whatever it is. You don't play in that domain. So you stay in your lane. So everyone's thesis is very, very different. And that comes from experiences. My very first transaction as a human being, I think I was 8 or 9 years old. I had 3 bicycles.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 kids down the street. It was Ellensgrat off Prinsengracht in the Jordan district. And I had 3 bicycles, a BMX, a chopper, and I can't remember the third one. And there were a bunch of kids. 2 of them didn't have any bikes. They would borrow my bikes all the time. Half the time, my bikes weren't at their homes. And one of the kids went, "Hey, can you just sell me your bike?" And I go, "Yeah, give me 100 guilders." And he said, "Okay." I was shocked. Someone will pay me money for one of my 3 bikes, the one I liked the least. That was the moment I understood commerce.
Mm-hmm.
I have something of value that someone is willing to pay for. And that was the beginning of my journey.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that you mentioned it, because it's a little bit like things that are important to me may not be important to another person. So that changes completely the perspective someone else is going to look at the same thing. So your bike, that was just, okay, I don't like it that much, but that was the treasure to somebody else. And that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Exactly. So that value, that it wasn't obvious to me that he had wanted it all along,
Oh.
And now he bought it. Yeah, he would borrow it, and I'll have him just keep it at your house, just bring it back every Friday, because when my mom came back home, if your bike was missing, you had a lot of explaining to do. So he bought the bike. So I ended up, funny enough, I ended up selling the second bike to another one of the kids, and then kept the bike that I liked, which was my BMX. And the 2 I didn't like, I sold off to people who liked it more than I. So value, 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 which leads me to my next question, which is, do you believe that a lot of companies and startups focus on the wrong things? So, for example, a lot of companies, startups in this case, they focus on the product. They build the solution to a problem that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then they go try to raise money.
Yes. I mean, yeah, well, to be honest, that I've seen a project like this, I've seen a proposal like this, and it's just it did not have the substance actually to justify. There was not the new angle to it. It was just like, and the ask was really, really large sum. of money, well above 1 billion. And then there was no justification. There was no substantiation in terms of, this is what it's going to do for the people. This is how it's going to change it. This is what we've done. That's the feedback we got from the people, from the market, that yes, they want it. And that is, I think it's just like kind of like doing things from the completely wrong side. It's exactly what you said. It's just like, starting at the wrong place. And I think when you look at the companies that are around and are thriving, and just some of those companies, it's just like, clients on demand. For example, these people that are trained with them. So, what they have done, they just basically ask the market, what is it that you want? And they identified the gap, what is needed that needs to be filled in. And with the demand, they created the product to fill in this demand, to fit in within this gap and just, basically contribute to it. And this allows a project to progress really quickly. If you don't have this, you will always struggle because you're trying to, it's a little bit like when you think about YouTube and YouTube algorithm, it's a little bit like, I want to show this to people, this. And so you keep posting, and you've got very little response. And then, when you actually study the algorithm, any algorithm, it's just, it's not designed for you to promote what you want. It's designed to find for people what they want. So in a sense, when I recall my PhD, working on my PhD, it was just, hammered again and again and again, give them what they want, tell them what you're going to give them, tell them what you are giving them, and then tell them what you've just given to them. But, you have to give them what they want in the form they want. And that's the same. It's just a little bit like, the algorithms are just based on the common human perception of things. It's just like when you go to the store and you see something and it's, oh, that's nice, but but you've got a shopping list. Yeah. You will this is your algorithm. You're just going to go with your shopping list. You're not going to go, oh, that's great. Yeah. Okay. But I really want to go and do my shopping list. Yeah. So it's a little bit like this. And I think from the pure common sense perspective, when you fill in the gap in the market, when you respond to the demand, you're actually contributing to the common good, to the bigger, in a bigger way. When you develop something, you think it's going to be great, who am I to say that it's not going to be great? Maybe it's going to be a hit. Maybe that's exactly what the market needs. But every business training that I've done, and every big names within the arena of the business will tell you the same thing, that you really need to respond to what market wants. So with the startups, I haven't had much opportunity to work with startups because that's not what the lender specializes in. They are really more looking at a bigger project. So, there might be a startup occasionally that they might be interested if one of the board members has interest in this particular arena. But, with their minimum level of 250 million, they are looking at the bigger things usually. So, something that is already advanced, or it can be just done completely from scratch, like building a housing estate, but still it's a different kettle of fish, like you said, kettle of tea. So really, I think it depends on heavily. And that's how we humans operate on it's probably the neuroscience that you're just going to go for the things that you need primarily. And then, like, for me personally, it's like, this is my must have. This would be nice have. That is great, because I live a simple life. That's my preference. I do like it this way. And so, I think that kind of, if you were to look at the projects, that would be probably the same thing. If you just try to push something because you think it's going to be great, and you think, then it will probably be an uphill struggle, because most equity investors and most VC investors most likely are going to be looking at, okay, if I am to give you the capital, what is going to be my return, and how quickly can we get that money back, and how quickly can you make it happen? So they will be looking at this thing. Have you done? Are you filling in the gap? Do you have the market fit, in product market fit? Is it something that is going to, and how soon, how fast can you develop it? And these days, it's just really about going to the market very quickly, because with all the technology that is surrounding us, it's kind of unavoidable. But yeah,
It is. That's very interesting, which leads me to my next subject, which is, do you think geopolitical considerations factor into these capital projects? So, for example, we know that investors like to put their money where there is a semblance, however imperfect, of the rule of law. So if I'm saying, okay, Beata, I've got a $1.5 billion project, but it's in Venezuela, versus a $1.5 billion project
it's
in,
not going to
say,
happen. That's, in the shortest way. That's I've had the pleasure of working with a few private debt lenders, and these are really large companies. The lender that I mostly with them, we mostly service now, they deployed 100 billion US dollars last year. They want to double this year. And each of those lenders, this particular lender, is very, very flexible in terms of, in terms of the location, but they will be looking at the political situation. And they will be looking at the economic situation. So they've got very strict criteria. But the other of the lenders, and this particular lender has been in around, I think they've been around for 40 years. So it's a massive, big company. And they have a list of locations where they are going to invest, including in Europe. So it's not going to be the whole Europe. So if you had a project, I don't know, the Netherlands, that probably is not going to be of interest to them, and the minimum is going to be 100 million of the project value, plus the projects need to have the appropriate collateral, which is usually, again, it depends on the lender, but without the collateral, it's just they're not even going to look at that, because that's the way the capital operates. But you are spot on about this, and they will look at that, because it's purely, when you look at this from the purely business point of view, the financial point of view, if you are the lender and if you want the project to succeed, because they want the projects to succeed, they really do. Because everybody benefits, and not just financially, it's the contribution to the economic, to the infrastructure, to generally to the human, like we mentioned before, the shelter, when they are building actually real estate. And so it's just, if they put in the money into something that is just unstable and may not produce results, that would be going into waste. And these days in particular, I think, I had an inquiry from the project owners, again, without disclosing any details. The project was located in one of the Russian territories, and the project owners themselves had basically come, originate from this particular area. The project is brilliant. It would be absolutely, a smooth ride with what they have and what they want to do, because it's really nicely done, and the roadmap for the project is there, and it would contribute to the economic situation. But the lender said no. the minute they saw it with the location of the facilities, of the manufacturing facilities, they said no. And it just happened. There was before the war with the Ukraine, where obviously these connections come from, like, you know, you've got your connections, I've got my family connections and friendships across different areas of the globe. And that's where it came from. Maybe without the current situation in the Ukraine, that I would look at it completely differently. But that was just literally, that was just a very, very, very short, quick response. That it was a flat no. So yes.
So do you then see then, you know, based on what you just said, do you see more capital deployment in a post, you know, Russia-Ukrainian conflict concentrated in that part of the world, should they come to some sort of terms? Do you see a lot of capital going there, or do you see the, you know, some measure of restraint, like a wait and see approach?
Well, so I think it really depends. I mean, the thing that just came to my mind when you mentioned this, it was I think it was maybe 5-7 years ago when I had a conversation with the there was the HSBC Bank and a private lending. So they focus on customers with, I believe, 5 million and above. They serve this group of customers, and we were having this conversation, and it just, you know, and he just mentioned that the situation that they had, and that's about, you know, money laundering regulations, etc. That because the situation that they had was that basically a pool of investors from Russia purchased one of the buildings in a prime central location in London. And there was a few investors, and within weeks from basically that purchase, you know, all of the investors except one were killed in various, you know, the situations. So that was the example of, you know, where the money, which, you know, that they ended up with, you know, owning one of the key buildings on one of the key streets in London for a large sum of money, and that went into the hands that, you know, normally the bank would want to have them, or the society wouldn't want to have them, because that's not the money which is, you know, given what happened to the investors, right? Investors, we don't know if these people were actually investors or what happened. But what I want to say is that within this area, and so, you know, I come from Poland, so we have Poland and Russia has a really long history. But you know, to my knowledge, that, you know, within this area, you've got, I mean, not just to my knowledge, that you've got the people like Mr. Abramovich, and that's the really big money, and that's the money who's been deployed actually from Russia to the West, and that's why the West kind of wanted to regulate it, because it did happen to me at some point. It was probably 2-3 years ago when I got the inquiries from companies serving those this particular area, and the request was literally just so that I would take the whole responsibility, find the investment, but would never know who the investors are. And the investors were allegedly from the Russian elites, government elites. And obviously, you know, with this is a no-go, because, you know, that is just the returns and the profits of it were very attractive. But obviously, you know, knowing these things, that you need to be aware that, you know, you just become a target, and, you know, to deliver on that and to work with people you don't even know who those people are, that is just that is very, very unwise. Now, back to today, so there is a lot of money that would that the investors would want to move from this area to the west to other areas, and that's similar with China. I remember that when I worked at Barratt Homes, that basically we had customers who wanted to take money out of China and to purchase properties, and that some of those purchases were basically, it's just like they were parking money. Some of the investors were parking money. They didn't have any yield, any return on those properties. They would buy the properties like the whole block of flats for 10 million or a villa for 2 million. That was in Cambridge, so that I'm talking the Cambridge prices from a few years ago. But still, if you just purchase a block of flats, or if you purchase a villa and it's standing there empty, it's literally it's not doing anything apart from the fact that you have put the money in and took it out from China to what is considered a safer location. And London and the UK generally has always been perceived like that. And London in particular, for the investors who are looking at for the luxury property or for the higher end stock, because it's the safe investment. It's always been perceived like that. So when it comes to capital, the capital that I work with, that's the capital from not from Russia. That is, they don't work with that. None of the lenders. They have probably a different structures, but. One of the lenders is one of the biggest companies in China, is Sure, they've got really trillions to invest. And then again, it could be shaky these days. So, my focus there, where we come into play, we focus on the lenders who have been in place for years, and they've got the track records, and and they've got the processes and systems. You don't have this with the Chinese pool of investors unless they are part of the lender that I work with, and I know that they are. So I don't think this capital means things in this way, or are we going to invest in Russia or these areas? I cannot really comment on that, because they will look because it will depend on the generally on the global economics, how things are going to
normalize or not
develop after the war. But so I don't think they are thinking about in terms of the long term, because some of the lenders are going to be focused on specific areas and they will not consider other areas. And some of the lenders are going to be open, and but look at the government levels, at the really political official levels, like the pipeline that was basically built, kind of Germany and Russian collaboration. The pipeline that was blew up. I forgot Nord Stream 2, right? A few months ago. So, these projects, you really cannot tell. I wouldn't be, I don't have a crystal ball. I can only tell you what they will look at right now. And within the current situation, that would be a flat no, yeah.
So that's interesting, because, I spent many years in Germany, and one of the things that jumped out at me was there was a similarity in terms of London real estate and German vineyard. Many of the vineyards in Germany now are actually no longer owned by Germans.
Really?
So you have, a lot of Chinese investors plugging money into those vineyards. It's interesting, because I think I was in Beijing a few years back, and there's a very, very profound wine culture. And a lot of those wines are actually German wines. So you see a lot of that investment going into it's still tied to real estate, because a vineyard, is actually real estate, and it holds value, a lot longer than just a normal, apartment building or what have you. So, and that's leading me to my next point of discussion, which is, do you then believe that when infrastructure is deployed, regardless of where in the world. An investor is looking at their thesis going, okay, this may be a worthwhile investment. Let's do that investment. Is it usually with a view to turn it over, whether it's to have another developer acquire that investment or because we want to increase value, right? So our investors in infrastructure projects invest in predominantly with a view to either get into an M&A, acquisition, sale, with a view to an exit event, or depending on their investment thesis, they do it with a view to adding value added to the community, to the economy, to the project, for whatever sociocultural or moral reason that drives their thesis.
Right. I think it's a great point, and some of the family, if you look at the reports on the family offices, and the contribution is very, very important, whereas others will be still looking at at the numbers. This is the numbers, that's the situation, that's what we can expect. So, the contribution in terms of, contribution to development, economic development, that it plays a part definitely plays the part for some investors. And those who are in this very small percentage of the projects that actually get to the application and then get the money deployed after the DD, the lender will be looking mostly at the numbers, but if it comes with this benefit of contributing, and that's kind of, maybe it might seem like it's the secondary, but the truth is that if they deploy money into a project that is not going to contribute, then that is not going to be the return. It's a little bit like what we talked earlier on with project owners trying to push the idea and develop something that the market does not want. So in a sense, that view from the numbers point of view makes it safe, because there's a strict criteria that they look at that needs, those boxes ticked, and that ensures that this project is actually going to succeed. Whereas if you go and, if you got the money for the project that, that does not tick all those boxes, that could create problems, because likely that is just not going to be possible to deliver it. And oftentimes, that the project owners overlook this aspect, not just, that we have the collateral, but overlook this aspect. And like you said, with these startups, that they think, oh yeah, that's what we're going to do. And, rather than, oh, what is needed? Where's the gap? What can we fill in? Where can we deliver? So this is kind of, when you look, you will often hear that capital is greedy and capital is brutal, and this might be just, again, the perception, but the truth is that they look at the numbers, and the numbers don't lie in a sense.
It's
Yeah.
truth.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think the green movement, I call them the Green Brigade, do you think it's now devolving into becoming, do you think the green movement have now been overrun by bullies and scammers? Because I find a lot of projects that have a lot of value, but you have these cities like, say, Amsterdam or even London, just going through the permitting process, the bureaucracy alone to get through all of the green, look, I love sustainability. Okay. But at the end of the day, there is a point where we have to go, wait a minute, a salamander lives there. Doesn't mean we're going to render, this whole area unusable. So do you think the green movement have become a hindrance to progress, especially in the Western world? Or do you think, despite the value they add, they don't pose any risks at all?
I think that's a difficult question. I mean, with you will find, you may come across bullies and the likes, anywhere, literally in any area. It's not kind of like confined to the one area. But for the green projects, I mean, personally, I think it's important because we need to have the collective responsibility for the planet. Because it directly contributes to our daily lives, of everyone on the planet. And if we can make it sustainable and if we can make it green, that's great. Like, for example, I hear, I don't have a car, so, I'm not commenting on that, but there's a lot of discussions. I hear a lot of discussions about, the electric cars being just, the batteries that we drive. And don't get me wrong, my uncle has a Tesla and I absolutely love it. The ride is superb. It's just like, it's fantastic. But
I had one past tense.
There you go. There you go. But I've heard just, some of the discussions were just like, these things are just, these cars are just the batteries. How are we going to utilize these batteries at some point? Yeah. So, is it actually contributing to the progress and a step forward? Is it actually creating another problem in the future, right? Because they will need to be utilized like anything else. Like for me personally, it's just when I look at some of the household appliances that we have, like a washing machine these days, the washing machine is designed to operate and run for some 5 years, maybe shorter, depending on how often you use it. But that's how they are designed most of the time. So personally, I don't like it because, if something is good that and can be used again and again, and, if you have it in a good condition, that, I don't want to have to necessarily go and buy another one just because it's just, hey, that's the end of my life. Yeah, you got to go and buy a new one because I'm aware that, okay, that's this one and it needs to be, utilized. So, it needs to be, recycled. So, there's just like, we tend to create solutions with potentially with the problems sitting kind of at the back of this solution. We don't see at the moment, everybody's like, yay, wow, fantastic. And then, a few years later, it's just like, oh, okay, that's another problem. We got to resolve this one. So, it kind of, my personal preference, but then again, I like the simple life. It would be just to make things as simple as possible because, simple scales. If I have to just get a new washing machine every few years, down, that what happens with the old ones, right? What is my footprint, carbon footprint, and how much waste am I leaving behind? Do you know what I mean? And it's just, yeah. So.
Yeah, I always say you can never scale what you can't simplify. That's a simple fact. Many projects I've been involved with, the successful ones didn't have that problems. The ones that were not successful have that problem. Again, if you can't simplify it, you will never scale it. And if you can't scale it, you will never find your product market fit, period.
Yeah.
My experience with Tesla, one, the batteries, they are not biodegradable. Two, to make those vehicles, you have to burn through 4 or 5 times the fossil resources to make those things. Third, when you drive an electric car, you always have this anxiety because you're always looking at your battery life. You're always looking at it because at the back of your mind, it's like, okay, I don't want to run out of battery. It tells you 300 miles, but when you charge it, it's never what they tell you. So if you add those 3 things, right? 1, it's not biodegradable. 2, it actually costs more fossil material to manufacture. And 3, when I drive, I've got anxiety. Why would I want to put myself through that? It's that simple. So the other point I was going to bring up is, do you think the Western world, there are first world problems and real world problems where we build vanity solutions to problems. And then we take a big microphone, right? We build the solution first, and then we'll take a microphone and scream about a problem that never really existed in order to create a market for the solution we just built. And I use electric vehicles as an example.
I think, yeah, I think again, it's probably the human nature, because when you look at history, that's been a kind of, part of the cycle. With the industrial revolution, that's the progress there, because as human beings, we have the ability to develop and grow and build and create things. And that's always been like that. And just, the machine was invented, and there you go. All of a sudden, people became what's not necessary, right? So, I think we are currently in the in the middle of another revolution, and some people don't realize it. With the IE being so omnipresent, where you can just basically, do things that the creative process, say for writing a blog, used to take. You have to process it, think about it. You have to, and then you just chat GDP, boom, and it's there. I think
do you think the Western world, via quote unquote creativity, right, is using technology to lower the cognitive load? Thereby, the net result we don't see is that as a species, starting with the Western world, we start to lose our higher cognitive abilities because we rely on machines. Take GPS, for example. I realized very recently, if I didn't have my phone on me, I felt like I was missing a kidney. Okay? When I was a kid, I could read a map, but now without the GPS, I don't know how to get to the next town. And bit by bit, now with AI and Chat GPT and all of that, we're further lowering our cognitive abilities because we rely on these machines. And those are first world problems.
Yeah. Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, these things, but I think it's very closely linked generally to the lifestyle. Like, with the invention of light, all of a sudden your day became as you like it, right? Yeah. But so in so doing, we disconnected as humans. We disconnected from our biological clock, and so. I think it's really, for me personally, it's really important. Just and I'm doing this on a daily basis for a number of years now, just to come back to the origin of me being a biological organism. So I know that if I have a project and I'm in the flow, and I've got the light, I've got my, laptop, I've got my bits and pieces, and I can sit up to, 4:00 in the morning. It's perfectly fine. Then I'm going to sleep longer. But what happens, what most of people don't know is that what happens that, from this window, 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., if you have the exposure to artificial light, to the computer light, to the blue light, to electricity, your body is actually taking the beating. So the first thing that I do, and that's just, I just follow the neuroscience and the latest developments, because I've been retraining my brain for a few years now. And this is a fascinating thing, because it brings us back to, that's the flesh, how to look up after the flesh, right? It's not like I have the ability to sit and watch Netflix for the whole night. I can do that, yeah. But I know that the next day, if I'm exposed to the artificial light, then, that my cognitive ability, my focus is going to be different. It's going to be lower. And then on top of that, if I wake up, say, I get my 8 hours sleep, I wake up, say, 10 a.m. Or 11 a.m. And the first thing I do is just to have my coffee. That, what I'm doing actually is just, I'm actually lowering it even more without, such a simple things. But, I will have a little bit of a kick for an hour and a half, but, that an hour and a half later, all the receptors are going to be like, no. And I'm going to be feeling down. And I think people just kind of ignore these things. And this I suppose that's the price of the progress of, all the developments of the technology advancement, everything that we've got around us. It makes us detached from, how we were biologically designed to operate and function on a daily basis. And I must say that for me, I prefer, the work till late at night, and it's okay for me to get up later. But at the same time, I am fully aware that if I got up, say, 7 a.m., where, you've got the daylight, then my day is going to be different. Yes. And so the first thing that I do, to make sure that I have a good day on a purely biological level, not just mentally and emotionally, but just, so after my meditations, first thing, my meditations, which is like 20 minutes. And then you just get dressed and you go for a walk, because, that's the first thing that we should do. Everybody, just to go outside, expose yourself to the daylight as soon as possible. Don't wait for, 3, 4, 5 hours, because that's going to be too late, and you won't be able to sort of, mitigate those late night sessions where you are actually exposed within this window from 11 to 6 a.m., to the artificial light. So, it's just, I think it's the human nature. It's been like this with any progress, any development that it brought. But it's like, Ken Wilber, the philosopher, says, if you draw a line like this, what do you have? Do you have just this side, or do you have like two sides, what you have in here and what you have in here? It's like with the magnet, you've got plus and you've got the minus, one doesn't exist without the other. So we need to be aware that it's similar with the electric cars being, that is such such an advancement. And, for someone like me, who's not a skilled driver, but that's not the reason why I don't drive, is, that car would be perfect because, everything is just done for me, right? But at the same time, I think, and many drivers who used to drive the manual cars, they say that, if you get into an automatic, that is going to be like, you kind of like you said, you're missing the kidney, or you're just like, what do I do now? Yeah. So yeah, I think like with everything, it's just you've got the plus and the minus. So it's a matter of, trying to sort of come to the neutral.
That's interesting, because do you then think we are evolving? Because we went from Homo erectus, right?
Yeah.
Homo sapiens, cognition, society, and all that. Mm-hmm. And now with technology and machines, we're slowly merging with it, which what I call Homo Deus, mm-hmm. where with technology, artificial intelligence, now, people are getting implants, trackers, machine, nanotech, the slow merger between Homo sapiens and technology now evolving into Homo Deus, almost quote unquote godlike. And do you think that's a potentially dangerous, because given our history, right? Humans, we are just a naturally destructive species. Right? If we're not destroying other things, we're destroying ourselves.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, part of it is we give up our privacy. Part of it is we give up our personal data for access. So I think the overarching question is, do you believe privacy and self-sovereignty are fundamental human rights?
Absolutely. But do we still have it? I think that's the question, which is kind of valid, because you're going to have, you are going to go for a walk with a friend. Like, I had the situation that my brother-in-law came back from his run, and he runs with a friend, and they were talking about a product. The minute they took their mobiles out and just checked the mobiles, the first thing they saw the advertisements of the very product.
Of course.
Right? So the question is, do we really have it? I mean, last year when I was in Albania, it just happened to meet a very young he was the a programmer from France. We had a little chat, and I asked him this question. He said, well, we work for the startup. They're doing the really fantastic things. But if we with other programmers, if we sat down and decided to do something that we wanted to do without telling the boss, we could just quite easily do that, and he wouldn't know. And I remember, so we had a conversation. I said, so it's you hear that when we are being watched by our mobiles or by the laptops or the appliances, that we really, even when they are switched off, and is that true? And he went like, so here we go. So there's been this conflict between Apple, because on Apple devices you can now just have your privacy settings that you're not going to have the ads, and so there was a big thing some time ago. So personally, the way I look at that is just how reasonable, am I about this? If I go to the sites which could, create some risk of, stealing my data, then again, really, what certainty do I have that this data is not there? It is there in a number of databases. Every time you buy something, every time you give your data, just like yesterday. Because I no longer have a mobile service provider, like you get the actual SIM card and from your mobile service provider. Yeah. For a few years now, I am truly online, so I only have the SIM for data, and I also have the application for the number that I used to have years and years ago. So it's still the same UK number that I have, but I have two apps that basically run on my mobile. And, just to renew one of those applications, yesterday, they do like a check from time to time. So I had to upload my passport and then, they take the shot on the face so that they can confirm I am who I am. What happens to this data? If I don't do this, I lose my mobile, right? So, there are situations like this. And I'm sure they are, data protected, et cetera, because they operate globally. So, and it's a really, really good product. I'm very happy because, every country I went to, I had the data for my mobile, no problems whatsoever. So, but this is the thing that, we do these things. We are not even, sometimes without even thinking, because, okay, that's the annual check. Okay, I got to do this. You go and you do this, right? And then maybe you might be thinking, oh, okay, but where did it actually go? So in terms of progressing those things, it's just like it's hardly avoidable within the world that actually surrounds us.
So are we really free then if everything we do is predicated on our data being compliant with the institutions of state or private entities? Are we really free if that data is consistent with what they believe it should be?
That is a huge question, but I would say freedom can also be personal. It could be something else for a different people. For different people, it is a different thing. For me, for example, freedom is just the ability to travel anywhere, anytime, and just to stay and just be in different locations and embrace different cultures. Yeah, for someone else, it might be having a home in my home time when I was born, and I want to be here. That's my environment. So, it depends on how we define freedom, but within what actually surrounds us, I think, are we really free? I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know, because, if I'm sitting here and my mobile is listening to our conversation and it could be maybe that the data could be collected somewhere. If that's true, that, I don't know, honestly.
So what advice would you give your teenage self?
If I were a teenager now,
Then
um,
or now?
then um, I've never thought about this because you see, I cannot change the past, right? So, it's well, no, I cannot change that. So, I'm really here right now, right here at this very moment. I'm here in the present and I'm fully engaged in the present. What I have ahead of me is tomorrow and maybe the day after that and so on and so on. But looking back, I think that the bigger thing comes into this when people ask this question. For me personally, I don't think it's a valid question because number one, you cannot really change anything. You can only learn from your mistakes. But that's where you are, and I think the focus is on now and tomorrow and
Going
what
forward.
I can get tomorrow, what I want now. Yeah. So, and if we look at the past mistakes or failures, and we just, start beating ourselves. Oh, that I shouldn't have done this. Oh, that was wrong. Oh, I did it. It doesn't make sense because, I would be doing myself a disservice. And don't get me wrong, that I had this mentality for years, because I simply didn't know. And you just kind of, dwell on the past. And, or sometimes, there are people who will be just like, oh, I should have said this. I should have said that about a situation that happened like maybe 5 minutes ago, maybe 3 days ago. But in this way, what you're doing, you just let it affect you. And, so I think, okay, let's learn from this. And, okay, that's not good. That's good. What was the purpose? What was the reason for this to happen to me? So that, I can be where I am now and where I want to get tomorrow or, 10 years from
So I
now.
think, yeah, so I think what you're saying then is you can do it looking forward. The past, you're never going to get back. Today
Yeah.
is what you have. Tomorrow, you can only plan for. So I think, do you then think as humans, we don't keep making the same mistakes? Because I see a lot of people who, in their teenage years, they made certain quote unquote mistakes, right? But as adults, they make the same mistakes, but in a different way. So repeatable patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that advice around, okay, if I can advise my teenage self today, if I saw a teenage me today, what counsel would I give?
Okay, I got it. I get you now. So, really, the advice that I would have given to myself, that's the advice that I have given to my niece, and she's 14, and I gave her this advice. I think it was last year. Start looking about, because, the patterns we all, but most of us run on autopilot. We don't even know this because, like you said, we do the same things. You drive to work. Experienced drivers, they don't even think, okay. You just do it on autopilot, and then you there at the destination. You're like, oh, okay, I'm here, yeah. Unless something happens in between, right? So
Yeah.
with the vast majority, and that's what the neuroscience also teaches, that and proves that with the vast majority of things that we do in life, we run on autopilot. Bob Proctor was teaching about the pattern of the subconscious that is basically sort of, doing this. Subconscious basically codes everything you see, you hear, it's there. And then, the conscious mind is going to pull the information, like in a computer, it's going to pull the information that depending on the surroundings, the circumstances, that, what's happening. And, it could be bad or good. And so, as humans, I think if you become aware that you have the pattern, the behavioral pattern, the pattern for, for clothing, for preference for food. Everything is learned, up to, the 6 years old, we are creative and we just absorb everything as like a sponge. Yeah. And then when, when the, cognitive thinking starts, that we kind of just like, this and that till the 18th, we are still creative, and then we kind of, become a little bit rigid. So, if you stop learning at that point, stop learning and training your brain, then, then you create the problem for yourself, because you just sort of, you're going to be within this pattern, doing the same things, maybe slightly differently, maybe this way, but it's going to be the same. And so that's why brain retraining, that is so important for me personally, because I completely forgot about it at some point, and then I realized, rediscovered it. I think it was 2010. And so I've never stopped. I always look for the new way to develop and to grow and just to expand. And this is what I said to my niece, I created for her like a little PDF, just, 3 pages with the key messages that, so what you focus on, you attract. Yeah. So it's a little bit like green light. Yeah. Oh, it's red again. Oh, it's red. Oh, it's red again. Yeah. It's just like kind of, they're very, very simple things, because, if you stay within your pattern, and, you will be thinking, oh, that's against me. That's wrong. That didn't happen. Oh, I'm bad. I'm not good. It's just, you're just going to be reinforcing the old pattern. So, that's my message to her was, don't let the pattern keep you in place, because you are a wonderful, creative, smart human being. And, creative and smart. We are smart in so many different ways. As many human beings that there are, that there's that many, smart people, because, that we are smart and creative in different areas. So, don't compare yourself, and just always grow, always look for new things, always, just because if you are stuck in one place, that's where you're going to have, you will see the people who are just like again and again.
So that's curious, because you mentioned your niece and this advice you gave her.
Mm-hmm.
Do you then think, especially for young women today, that social media, TikTok, all of this has created a much more difficult path, because the neuro association of, getting likes, getting friends, comments, and all that has created this culture of instant gratification, where the same fulfillment you get for interpersonal connections have now been translated into superficial online connections, where you have people who would post or say anything just to get reactions from random strangers around the world, right? The same way in business, where social media will say, oh, we got 10,000 likes on this post, but did you get 10,000 new customers? So do you think it's created a much more dangerous situation, where you have, especially young women, young vulnerable women, are being pushed this false dopamine rush based on, technological, social media based artificial engagement versus human engagements, which they sacrifice one for the other?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's an excellent point. Actually, you're going to laugh, but my little niece, or not that little, but she's a creator on TikTok, and so she started because she's very creative. So she actually studies, photography and media. And I think it's a fantastic path for her, because, if she was pushed into some other direction, like, working with numbers, that she would be unhappy for the rest of her life. So this is where she can bring her creativity and grow. And we can see that she's doing tremendously well. I haven't seen her TikTok account, but what she told us, it's basically that she comments on some movie series, which is, the young people are just really, really into, and and it's her opinion on that. And this is how she kind of, it's like, she found a niche, and she got the organic response from the platform, from the people on the platform. So that, I think, is fantastic. So for her, it's not so much about getting the likes, or, you know, maybe, I don't know how it actually started. She just told us at some point, you know, so
organic
yeah.
engagement, and it
Yes.
feeds.
Absolutely. But you know, my nephew, for example, he's the same age. They are a different generation. You know, they are kind of, you know, technology is the part of their lives. So they are in two different parts of the country, and they still, you know, communicate or play together or just, you know, exchange. So it's not like she's got new friends from the followers. It's not that much. It actually helped her a lot because she was bullied at school. That was unfortunate, but that happened. And then, you know, that almost the last year of the school, that very person, because TikTok was showing suggestion, that very person, the bully, saw her account, and then she came to her and she said, "Oh, I saw your account or this and that, and you've got that and that amount of followers." But she's got a lot of engagement and a lot of views because she's clearly doing a good job that you know, the young people her age like. So that was the positive thing, because, you know, that for us to tell her, okay, you know, how you could potentially deal with the situation. I'm not there. I'm not going to go to school the next day and face this person and, you know, face, you know, all the comments and stuff like this. So maybe there was a way for her to kind of, you know, move forward. But looking at the kids, it's like, in my family, it's not like they, I think it's more the people, you know, the older generation, or that they need this kind of sort of, you know, to that image of that they were maybe more susceptible to this, that, you know, the following, because we were sort of, you know, earlier, before we were not exposed to that. But then, you know, Google happened and they shortened our span like this, and then you just, you know, and so then you had the videos, and now you've got the short form content, because you cannot process everything, So I don't think that, at least for the kids that in my family that I know, I don't see this as a replacement for real life connection, for, you know, for you know, reaching out to people, to their friends, reaching out to us as the, you know, aunties or, you know, family members. I don't see this as a replacement. Obviously, I'm not privy to everything that they do online, but you know, you hear those awful stories, and I think it comes back to the family and the people who are around you, and the friends, and, you know, your self-worth and self-value. And, you know, that there's this very, very famous saying, I think Marisa Peers, you know, just talks about it, the psychologist, that, you know, that people oftentimes when they come from the family, they may have this pattern of, you know, I'm not good enough, or I'm not enough. And I think it's huge, because, you know, I also faced that, and I also, you know, reworked through this. But you know, we come from this baggage. So you know, I think it's really about the family and the people around you, the friends. You know, you don't choose the family, but you can choose your friends, right? You know, the people you have the relations with. And I think, you know, this is where it becomes so important. Like, you know, some of the trainers that you know, I've studied, I forgot who, forgive me, but, you know, it's like there are people with whom you can spend 30 seconds and you're just going to be like, enough, you know, 3 minutes, that's it. 3 hours, okay, but no more. But then there are people with whom you can spend, you know, 30 days, you know, and you know, 30 years, right? So this was another thing that I said to her. If you focus on those, you know, 30 seconds, yes, then you give them power to come and affect your life. If you focus on those, you know, 30 years and 30 days, and those meaningful things that enrich you, then, you know, and you stop giving meaning to the 30-second people, you know, you become empowered, and you just, you know, it, they become unimportant.
Fuller. Yeah, richer. It's a richer experience. Yeah. So let me pivot for a second. As an investor, okay, in what way or ways has your work changed someone's life?
Let me just I'll keep it simple. Like when I don't do flipping anymore, but I love flipping. This is fun. I absolutely love it and one of the reasons I love it is because you find a, excuse my French, crappy house, and you give it a new lease of life, and that is amazing because you know that it's going to stand there, it's going to contribute. So that's one thing that's going to contribute to someone's life. That is so simple. It's not just about okay, the numbers work. That's a good project. Let's crack on with that. But it's actually going to be there serving people. Very simple. I like keeping things simple.
Yeah. That's impactful. And we talked earlier about the power of the home.
Yes.
Take something that's been beat and weathered down over the years, and you breathe new life into it, and you hand it off, to someone else that's going to come in and build a life on top of that, and that then carries 2, 3, 4 generations, through that. And you can step back and because I believe there is no greater sense of accomplishment than service to humanity, period. And something like that is the ultimate service because you've breathed life into something and you've handed it off to someone who's going to make a home, make a life, and a legacy out of it.
Absolutely.
Which I believe it's a very fantastic thing. So who was your favorite cartoon character when you were a kid?
Oh my gosh. There's so many. I had so many. I absolutely love that but my favorite, I think Tom and Jerry, probably.
Wow. You know what's funny? Tom and Jerry, that was my favorite cartoon as a kid, but I didn't realize that the soundtrack to Tom was all classical music. And then as an adult, when I got into the classics, and I'm going, wait a minute, as a kid, in my teens, I started listening to Mozart, and I'm going, that was all Tom and Jerry. And it didn't click. And that was how I realized that this entire time, I have listened to, symphony, everything, but as a kid, it was through Tom and Jerry.
And that's the magic of it, right? Because that you can put in so many different elements that normally you would approach as separate classical music, cartoon, but then you fuse it and you've got something magical.
It's fantastic. Wow. So for what in life do you feel most grateful?
Health and family and the people around me. These two things. I mean, it's just without health that no money can give you that quality of life. It's just simple as that. That's just it. And then again, without friends and meaningful friendships and family around you, the people again who are part of your world and you interact with, and this enriches you, and you can. It's a two-way traffic where you can enrich them at the same time. These are the things that I'm definitely most grateful for. Definitely.
Interesting. So, what's your most treasured memory?
Wow, my most treasured memory. There's so many because you look. If you look back, then there's so many. But I think I enjoy the little things because everyday things. It's not like there's one big thing that I used to have this mentality when I finished the PhD, when I this, then I will be happy or this or that happy, and then it didn't happen. And so I really I really cherish these little things, like, a good meal, like, I make a good meal. I'm going to have a really great dinner because I made it just before our call. And I'm glad that I put, that I said, okay, I'm going to spend, this time to prepare it because I know it's going to be awesome. So, this is just this little thing, that little happiness that awaits for me. Or, having just this wonderful conversation right now. What I want to do even more, just do more of the things that make me happy and be more in the present, because, this is when I can enjoy things, not in the past. That there are little things like, the holding my little nephew for the first time when it's little tiny, but now he's 7 and we love going for the trips together, and just the two of us, and just all around the park and everything. And we have a really good relation. Or my niece, like, when she was little, or now when we had this, some difficulties, then you have a conversation and you help her, or or she says something about TikTok, and I'm like, okay, I'm learning all the time. So it's just because that's my mentality. You look at everyone, you can learn from everyone. So just these things, that this mentality, just to be in the present, and it's not going to win the lottery. It's I'm going to have a good meal. Yeah. That's
simplicity. I mean, simplicity is a beautiful thing. You notice flowers, the colors, going for a walk, having just one glass of wine, just the little things are so powerful. And it comes with growth. Because as we get older, we start to realize that, wait a minute, there's more to life than just money, 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 money. It's interesting. So my last question to you is, what does friendship mean to you?
Friendship, I think,
aside from going on people's podcasts, of course.
I think it's for me, it's all about the connection. It's all about the connection. So, no amount of social media would be comparable to, we have the connection. We have that connection. We had the good vibes since the first time we spoke on the phone. I remember that. And that brings me back to, the 30-second people, and then, there may be 30 days of 30 years people. Yeah. And that's what really matters. And I had an unfortunate event. I lost a friend recently, and it's nothing sinister. It just, that things we started that project together, and I put in, 200% and more into this project. And my friend didn't. And so, we had, and in fact, it was quite the opposite. And so when I discovered that, and I tried to bring this person on and on and on, and just, I kept dragging the project and, my friend, and I realized that's not going to work. And, I made an error just, thinking of doing this project together. But, so this is like, this is why I said to this person from the start, please think about it. Do you really, really want to do this? Because you know me, that I say I am 100% in. You know me, that I'm going to be 100% in all the time. Do you have the same commitment? Because I value our friendship more than, I wouldn't want this to end badly because of that project, which is unfortunately what happened. And so, then it poses the question, was it really the friendship if it ended like this? But things like this happen. So, I decided not to dwell upon it. I just accepted this. And every time a situation like this happens with some negativity, you will worry about something. You will send them the negative energy because you worry about this person. So, every time, something like this happens, you have to be realistic about the situation and take realistic steps, even if that's a friend. And maybe in particular, if that is a friend, because if you don't do anything or don't tell them, your perspective, then, that you quite possibly are going to be doing a disservice to him. But, what I do in a situation like this is what Sister Shivani teaches. It's just like, you do what you need to do about the situation. And then at the soul level, at the higher level, at your highest spirit level, it's just what she teaches is, I'm sorry for what I had done to you in the past. I forgive you for what you did to me. Past is past. Our karmic account is over. I am sending you love and blessing. So, it's just like this. And I look at everybody in this way because, that many things may happen to you and many negative thoughts, many negative energies may kind of stick to you. So, just because you're passing it, you might be vulnerable. But I think it's good to maintain this healthy balance. And in particular in friendship, if you don't have this platform where you can express yourself, then perhaps that was not a friendship
in the first place.
When a thing like this happened and you still managed to, get over this difficulty and reconcile the differences, then that's something worthwhile. But that brings us back to, 30 seconds and, and 30 years. So maybe we had a shorter, term of this friendship. I don't know.
That is awesome. Beata, thank you so much, for taking the time. Every time we interact, this has been not only insightful, but it's been a long time coming for me. And I'm very happy to call you a friend first among many.
Thank you.
And I hope we can definitely do this again sometime soon. And I'm, like I said, it took a while to organize this because I know you like to do your thing behind the scenes. You don't like attention and all of that. So thank you again for being open to doing this with me.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm just, very grateful. And it's always great to, catch up with you. Always so happy.
Fantastic. I am going to end recording